We need look no further than Abu Dhabi's national energy company, TAQA, for an example of how industry and infrastructure are collaborating to help deliver a clean energy transition. Well, Omar AlHashmi is the executive director of TAQA's transmission and distribution business, and he's perfectly placed to explain how that collaboration works both in principle and in practice. Omar, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. Look, can you just start with a short explanation of what transmission and distribution actually means and how you apply it at TAQA?
Okay, so thank you very much. First of all, it's really great to be here, especially with the caliber that we have in this week in Abu Dhabi. Again, my name is Omar AlHashmi. I'm responsible for the transmission distribution, which is one of the three main pillars in TAQA, together with oil and gas and generation. Today, TAQA is one of the largest integrated utility companies in the Middle East, Europe and Africa. We're kind of like number 10 by regulated asset base. So from transmission distribution business line, what we're referring to is all the assets from the moment the power watt is generated all the way to the consumer, including the servicing them by billing and collection and the customer service part. So that's the part that we're focusing on.
Okay, so thank you for that. Now, given what you've just said, why is infrastructure so important in delivering the energy transition? We're talking about energy transition, but we now have to make it happen. So where does infrastructure fit into that transition equation?
I'm really glad we're actually talking about that. I mean, traditionally the media has been focusing so much on the generation, like is that energy coming from hydrogen, from solar, from wind, and to a certain extent on how we consume the energy, like, you know, there might be an LED technology that consumes less, or a certain equipment that's actually more efficient in using it. And everybody always assumed that the infrastructure is there to deliver it. But reality is, infrastructure is not there to deliver it, and there's a lot of bottlenecks in the system. So, I mean, depending on different data sources, I mean, we believe that the world needs between 15 to 30 trillion dollars of investments in the transmission and distribution up to 2050 to enable all that energy and green electrons to flow. There's few trends causing that massive investments. From one side, we need to be able to connect all these new generation assets to the grid. Yeah, so that's one major trend we see. We also noticed that, for example, I mean, electricity as a market is gaining momentum and gaining space. Like, for example, today in Africa, 40% of the population is connected, but there's very strong ambition for that percentage to grow significantly. So basically, the market of electricity is actually growing. There's also the notion that many parts of the grids in different parts of the world are very old and requires major investments and refurbishments and replacements to allow it to be catered to deal with all these different changes in the energy mix. And there's the reality of electric vehicles and batteries. So reality is, there is so much investments needed, and people assume it's just there and it's already there. But if we don't really take care of it, we're going to have an issue. And we think that investments in transmission distribution is as important as it is in the generation side.
My sense of what you've just said is that what you're talking about here is changing our perception of what that infrastructure is all about, effectively redefining it, redefined by reality.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, when you think about renewable energies, the nature of the electrons is different. There is intermittency. Sometimes the sun is on, sometimes the sun is off. There's a lot of technological requirements to enable us to fully maximize the value of the renewables. And the technologies of the past need to be upgraded to allow us to do that, basically.
Given that, how is TAQA's transmission and distribution business prepared to invest in infrastructure? Because the layout on this is phenomenal.
Absolutely. I mean, if we refer to some of our announcements about our ambition to invest, actually we made we talked about how much we need to invest. I mean, in the transmission distribution side, we see that that we need in our territory is about more than $10 billion investments just to be able to keep up with all these trends. And here you're talking about a city that is fairly well developed and built up, but you still need that big investment. And if you look at other parts of the world, the investment is going to be much bigger. I do see it every year. There's an increase in requirements from a CapEx point of view. These are projects to meet our customers' needs and their natural growth, but also to connect with all the ambitious projects that UAE is doing to bring more electrons, like connecting the nuclear power plants, connecting the new PV plants, and we believe that we are an important stakeholder and partner to support UAE and Abu Dhabi to meet its objectives.
And also as well, very briefly, we've been talking or referencing demand-side management, DSM. Now, it's seen as a key part of decarbonising the energy sector. So, in very simple terms, what is DSM? Why is it so important to that decarbonisation process? And more specifically, what is TAQA doing within that space?
Sure. That's a very good question. Thank you so much. So DSM is basically a notion of how we can consume smarter, right? It has many different pillars associated with it. Some elements might be about better awareness. Like sometimes if you just know that you don't need to keep the heater on the whole day, if you only need to take a shower once a day, that reduces your consumption. If you know that if you keep the fridge a little bit open, it increases consumption. So part of it is just knowing the proper way to consume the power without really affecting your lifestyle. So that's one big important part in DSM. But also retrofit is a very big agenda for us. Reality is, the government, they're doing a lot of effort to try to improve the codes of building. Now you see the new buildings are built in a much more efficient way, and insulation and all that kind of stuff. But reality is, a lot of our cities have been built a long time ago. So although a lot of these regulations support the new building, we need to have solution for the older building. So retrofitting becomes a major item from demand-side management program, where we see a lot of promises of deploying technology in a very smart way to actually provide savings to the consumer and to the environment. So what does TAQA is doing about that? We're doing quite a bit, actually. We created a company called ADS, Abu Dhabi Energy Services, which acts like a super ESCO or a market maker for the energy service market. So what they do is they try to develop projects, and they create a tender in the market, and they provide financing solution, because some of these deals are non-financeable from a traditional banking point of view. So we provide that platform that allows that business to happen. Demand-side management is very good from an economic point of view. It creates jobs, it reduces cost, it employs people. So it's actually a very good thing that you can do, where it's actually a win-win-win to everybody.
Okay, good note on which to end. But Omar, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. But that was Omar AlHashmi, who's the Executive Director of TAQA's Transmission and Distribution Business.
Thank you very much.